Welcome back to Panda Audiobooks. You are listening to Pursuit of the Truth by Gen, Episode 10, covering chapters 28, 29, and 30. Su Ming has made his stand, but the consequences of challenging the ancient order are swift and brutal. This segment is defined by intense betrayal, a desperate escape, and a forced separation from everything he knows. Stripped down to his core, Su Ming must now embark on a truly solitary and lethal new path to survive, with nothing left but his berserker resolve and the pursuit of a fragmented truth. Prepare for the ultimate break from the past. Chapter 28. The Crying Sky. The very moment the elder of Dark Mountain tribe growled, the red mist spread out and covered the blood-red moon in the sky. A large number of wings of the moon screeched as they came and sped through the mist, covering the sky above Dark Mountain tribe. Piercing roars drowned out all the sounds in the land. It was the only sound that could be heard that night. Dozens of beasts drenched in blood were thrown into the air by the tribe members. Before they fell back to the ground, they were immediately swarmed by the wings of the moon that gathered upon them like bloody clouds. Amid the cries, the beasts' bodies were entirely covered by the wings of the moon and their flesh pierced through by sharp teeth. They turned into dried-up carcasses in an instant. Their blood and living bodies were devoured by the wings of the moon. All that was left were only skin and bones. They crashed onto the ground and twitched helplessly before they all died. Some of the numerous wings of the moon in the sky even ignored the beasts tossed into the air. They plunged straight towards the tribe members. Their eyes were filled with ruthlessness and a thirst for blood. Their targets were the berserkers within the tribe. Screams, cries and roars collided with each other. They resonated with the screeches made by the wings of the moon on that strange night. The lake of fire that surrounded the entire tribe was like a solid barrier. It caused the wings of the moon that approached the tribe to retreat with a cry. It seemed that the fire, which could not even burn the houses, could actually cause them mortal damage. Again. The elder stood within the lake of fire and looked at the sky gravely. Immediately more tribe members tossed even more beasts into the air in the midst of their fear. It did look like they were feeding and offering sacrifices to the crazed wings of the moon in the sky. Time passed by. All of the creatures stored for winter had become food for the wings of the moon and fell back onto the ground like mummies. Driven by madness caused by their lust for blood, they started diving downwards. It seemed like an attempt to break through the lake of fire and descend upon the tribe to feast on the blood of the berserkers. The elder waved his right hand and the lake of fire turned into a giant vortex that spun rapidly in the sky. He was going up against the wings of the moon in the sky by himself. At the same time, arrows upon arrows pierced through the lake of fire and into the sky from the tribe to fight against the wings of the moon. To the wings of the moon that were pretty much immortal, this sort of injury was nothing to them. Their flapping wings and piercing cries made the people in Dark Mountain tribe panic. Before long, some wings of the moon broke through the lake of fire and flew into the tribe, causing chaos within Dark Mountain tribe. The same also happened in Dark Dragon tribe. However, a strange sight happened within Black Mountain tribe. All of the members of the tribe prostrated on the ground and remained still. In the sky, the elder of Black Mountain tribe, by two, stretched his arms wide open. His face looked crazy with fanaticism as he stared at the sky, chanting. Numerous wings of the moon circled around him. There were also a large number of them on him. Their fangs sunk into his flesh and they drank his blood. Yet Bai Tu appeared to have lost all sense of pain. He did not resist. Instead, the crazed fanaticism on his face grew even more. As his face became paler due to the loss of blood, the strange chant became louder. I sacrifice my blood to you, O ancient fire berserker tribe. You have obtained immortality and have turned into wings of the moon. You feast upon the berserker blood, and now I will take the blood of the fire berserkers into my veins. Di he, Hong La Dong. Bai Tu bellowed, facing the skies, and immediately, a piercing black light erupted from his body. As the black light spread out from his body, the wings of the moon on his body screamed. Their bodies started shriveling and the light in their eyes started dimming. After a moment, they fell off Bai Tu's body as they lost all signs of life. It drove more wings of the moon wild. The process repeated itself. A large amount of blood from the wings of the moon was absorbed by Bai Tu. His body began to swell at an alarming speed and a thick presence of qi erupted from his body. The moment they sensed the presence of the qi, not only did those wings of the moon become even more frantic, even the ones that went to Dark Mountain Tribe as well as Dark Dragon Tribe changed their direction and flew towards Black Mountain Tribe. Not far away from Black Mountain Tribe stood the figure of a person wrapped entirely in a black robe. He stood out among all the people of Black Mountain Tribe who lay prostrated on the ground. The black robe he wore was also not something that could be found in the small tribes around the area. As he stood there, he looked at the elder of Black Mountain Tribe in the air, his lips curling up into a dark smile. I gave you the way to find the moonstones necessary to summon the wings of the moon made of the fire berserker. I also taught you the way to summon them. I told you the quickest way to arrive at the Transcendence realm. Your success is up to you now. Compared to the chaos outside, Su Ming was relatively safe. He pushed away the stones that covered the hole in the cave and jumped out. There were several spots on his skin that had blistered due to the heat. His lips were dry and cracked as his heart pounded against his chest. I can't believe this is one of the resting places of the wings of the moon. Su Ming stared at the spot where the wings of the moon appeared in the cave. He heard many legends regarding the wings of the moon since he was young and knew just how terrifying they were. The legends about how they were almost immortal also made Su Ming narrow his eyes in fear. After a moment of silence, he crawled out of the entrance of the cave slowly. As he was near the exit, he stuck out his head quickly and looked around. The sight made him gasp. The sky was covered by red mist and an uncountable amount of wings of the moon circled the sky, the sound of their roars echoing. Su Ming immediately retreated into the cave. I wonder what happened to the tribe. I can't go back now. If I leave now, the wings of the moon will definitely find me. Su Ming frowned. He was feeling very agitated and worried about the tribe. Even so, he knew that he had no way to solve the problem. He looked at the place within the cave, where the wings of the moon appeared. Slowly, a glint appeared in his eyes. The number of wings of the moon is obviously a lot of more than the previous times. By the looks of it, the deeper parts of the cave should be empty now. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before walking forward slowly. After he stepped over the place he used for quenching and observed the deeper parts of the cave, he decided, I might as well see what's in there that allowed the wings of the moon to stay here for so long. I might be able to find their secret and tell the elder. It might be of some help to him. Su Ming then ran towards the deeper parts of the cave that he had not explored before. It was odd. The cave was usually hot. There were even times when Su Ming felt as if there were hot waves crashing onto him. However, as Su Ming went deeper into the cave, he no longer felt any heat. Instead, he felt a chill coming from within the cave. As Su Ming continued walking deeper, there was another uproar amid the three tribes on Dark Mountain. Several hundreds of the wings of the moon had already penetrated the lake of fire protecting Dark Mountain Tribe. They dived towards the tribe members and fought against the berserkers. Bei Ling's eyes grew cold as he protected Chen Xin, who stood behind him. A cold wave spread out of his right hand, forming sharp icicles around them. There were a lot of wounds on his body and blood poured freely out of his body. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes and focused on a point far away. He reached for the bow on his back with his right hand without any hesitation. As Bei Ling took the bow, a strong killing intent came forth. He drew the bow with his left hand and the tip of the bow gleamed. Immediately, the snow around them gathered at the tip of the bow and he shot an ice arrow towards the direction he was looking at. Some distance away, Lei Chen was overwhelmed by a lust for blood. There were numerous wings of the moon on his body but he did not care. Instead, he seemed to be taken over by madness as he grabbed one of them and tried to bite it. You want to suck my blood? Fine, I'll suck yours too. Just as he was about to bite down on the wings of the moon in his grasp, he noticed there were dozens more flying towards him. With his current level, there was no way he could fight against so many of them. At that moment though, a cold blast of air rushed towards him. As the cold wind appeared, an arrow made of snow and ice exploded on top of Lei Chen with a bang. It caused all the wings of the moon on top of Lei Chen to fall, saving him in the process. Lei Chen was surprised. He turned and looked at Bei Ling, who was coolly putting aside his bow. An indescribable expression appeared across Lei Chen's eyes. The chi of Dark Mountain Tribe's leader was rolling off his body like waves. In his hands was a long silver spear. Every time he threw the spear, cries would echo throughout the sky as numerous chi waves hit the air, causing the wings of the moon to spread out. Even so, the number of wings of the moon that rushed down was too many. Some of the normal members of the tribe were even nearly captured by some of them. That moment, the elder acted. He swung the bone cane in his hands and the entire tribe trembled. An illusion of a giant statue of the god of berserkers formed in mid-air. The statue's eyes were filled with ruthlessness as if it was alive. The dragon in its hands even lifted its head and roared. Then it flew into the sky and swept through its surroundings. As time passed, the night of the blood-red moon slowly went by, but the battle in the tribe became even more intense. Some wings of the moon captured a few members of the berserker tribe alive instead of sucking their blood near the end of the battle. They intended to bring the members back to their lair and suck out their blood. As light started to brighten up the sky, a piercing cry sliced through the air from Dark Dragon Tribe. Among the numerous wings of the moon was a white figure. Her beautiful face was pale and filled with despair as she was captured along with her other tribe members by the wings of the moon. They were flying back towards Dark Mountain. Behind them, an old woman wearing sackcloth chased after them desperately. As their cries of terror continued traveling away from Dark Dragon Tribe, the old woman's eyes became bloodshot and were filled with despair before long. She turned around and gave up on the chase. She chose instead to go back and defend her tribe. When the person in white saw this, tears escaped her eyes. As her tears fell, they disappeared without anyone noticing. As daylight arrived and the blood-red moon disappeared, the tens of thousands of wings of the moon let out a huge cry and flew back towards Dark Mountain from all directions. Some of them carried the girl in white and her other tribe members towards Black Flame Mountain. They entered through the cracks. Chapter 29. The Ancient Tribe. Su Ming walked forward into the deeper parts slowly and carefully. He remained alert on the way and regularly made sure the coast was clear before he moved further. As he moved, he also held onto the horn and activated the chi in his body. He prepared himself to fight with the power of all 11 blood veins at all times. He also searched for possible hiding places along the way so that he could hide himself when there was any danger or when the wings of the moon suddenly returned. Su Ming was filled with curiosity towards the unknown, but his cautiousness kept his curiosity in check. It was especially so in such a dangerous place. As he moved forward, the cave colder. As the crossroads increased, Su Ming's speed also increased. It was completely dark around him. There were also a lot of cracks on the walls. By the looks of it, they were caused by years of heating. However, Su Ming noticed that some cracks were just recently formed. The color on those walls were different from the others. That's odd. These cracks must have just been formed recently. Just what kind of energy could have caused the walls to form new cracks? An answer began to form in Su Ming's head. Could it be because of the sudden cooling of the strong heat, causing an unimaginable force of energy to explode? Su Ming scratched his head. He did not think too deeply into it, but he remembered it. He did not know how long he walked, but it felt like a long time. Suddenly, he stopped. The cave before him had obviously become much bigger. In fact, the deeper he went, the wider it became. Have I arrived at the deeper parts of the cave? Su Ming scrutinized his surroundings and walked forward slowly. Before long, the cave before him grew wider. When he arrived at the end, Su Ming took a deep breath and started thinking as he absorbed the sights before him. Before him was a cave the size of his tribe. There were dozens of other small holes around the cave. The hole Su Ming exited from was one of them. In his silence, Su Ming went forward, his eyes bright. He looked at the other small holes in the cave. Then he narrowed his eyes and leapt forward, stopping at the entrance of each hole in the cave to take a sniff. Once he went through all the small holes, Su Ming stared at one of them. Without any hesitation, he crawled in. Among the small caves, only this one had a faint stench of blood. It was obvious that the wings of the moon flew out from this hole. As he ran, Su Ming stopped at times to think. As he did so, he would slice off a big chunk of rock from the walls around him using the horn. The rock was about as tall as the tunnel. It was bothersome, but Su Ming insisted on doing it. Su Ming cut out a few rocks of the same size as he moved forward. Each time he sliced them out, he would place them aside once he positioned them properly. Gradually, Su Ming's speed increased. He still kept his guard up. He could tell that he was going towards the bottom of the mountain. That was why the area was becoming bigger. Su Ming continued running downwards. It was not until he felt that he had run a long distance before he gradually saw a red light before him. The red light was like fire, but he could not determine what it was. When he saw the fire-like red light, Su Ming slowed down. His heart pounded against his chest. Somewhere in his mind, he felt that he was near the end. As he drew near, he had a hunch that the blood in his body was going to boil. It was not a feeling he was unfamiliar with. The rocks on the walls had numerous scratches. There were also some bite marks on the rocks. It created a strange atmosphere that made Su Ming nervous. Nonetheless, he did not stop. Alternatively, he walked towards the red light. It was indeed the end of the tunnel. Instead of a road ahead, there was a giant fire cave in its place. Su Ming remained alert. He stood at the exit and looked downwards. As he did, he stood there stunned as if he was struck by lightning. Then he instinctively took a few steps back, drawing a sharp breath. There was a giant basin in the cave. Within the basin were numerous stalagmites as sharp as thorns. They were shaped like hills. The thorny structures were entirely gray, but they constantly emitted a chilly wind which surrounded the area. The temperature in the cave dropped to freezing cold. That did not really affect Su Ming. No, what astonished Su Ming was what he found covered by the cold thorns within the basin. It was a tribe. There were numerous houses made of stone, a barricade, and a watchtower made of stone. Su Ming even saw stone pots used to cook rice scattered everywhere in the tribe. On the walls outside of each house was a picture of what looked like a blazing fire. All of the houses made of stone were huge and built in an orderly manner. They looked much more luxurious compared to the houses in Dark Mountain Tribe. Su Ming even saw roads made of stone. There were a large number of protruding stones on some of the smaller paths as well. Su Ming took a long time observing them, but he still had no clue what the small pavements were for. It was not a normal tribe or a complete tribe. Su Ming's gaze fell upon some of the houses at the edge of the tribe's settlement. Those houses seemed to be split apart by a mysterious force. Only half of them remained within the basin. As for the other half, no one knew where they went. It was especially so on the tribal grounds. Besides the stone pavements, the other parts looked like dirt, forming a clear difference between the stones in the mountain. Su Ming's breathing quickened. As he marveled at the sight before him, he remembered what the elder once said, the legend of the Fire Berserker tribe. Gradually, a picture began forming in his head. In this picture, he saw a gigantic tribe which seemed to span endlessly across the land. All the houses in the tribe were made of stone, and on their walls were the emblems of a blazing fire. The emblem represented the name of the tribe. However, one day, a change occurred within the tribe. It was split apart by an unknown force like it was shattered. The unknown force also scattered the tribe and its members along with the land it was built upon. They were all forced apart. A small part of the tribe and the land shifted into Dark Mountain. That wasn't a legend. Su Ming looked at the bizarre and incredible sight before him. He swept his gaze across the tribe, and when he looked at the center of the tribe, he narrowed his eyes. There was an even stranger thing in the middle. It was a giant tree, or more accurately, it looked like a giant tree. The entire thing was blazing red, and it emitted a light which looked like fire. The light Su Ming saw from the tunnel was from this giant tree. The tree was as thick as dozens of grown men. Its roots had penetrated the ground and looked as if they went deep into the ground. No one knew how deeply they went. Only the tree trunk was visible. The top of the tree had already penetrated the top of the cave. Only part of the tree was visible. A tree growing within Black Flame Mountain. Su Ming stared at the tree. Over there, he saw some familiar red flowers displaying their enchanting beauty. As he looked at the red flowers, Su Ming remembered the strange sights he saw at the swamp in the forest. Su Ming averted his gaze in his silence and looked at the ruins of the tribe that had been buried within the passages of time. A sudden sadness formed in his chest. He sighed and jumped down to stand amid the ruins of one of the 8 great berserker tribes. The fire berserker tribe had fought against the god of berserkers. Then, the wings of the moon must also be as depicted in the legends. They are the changed form of the fire berserker tribe that had been granted immortality by the fire berserker elders' berserker art. But this is unbelievable. How could such an art truly exist? Just how strong was the fire elder of the fire berserker tribe? It's mentioned in the beast skin scroll that after the blood solidification realm is the transcendence realm, and after the transcendence realm is the bone sacrifice realm. There was no mention of what comes after the bone sacrifice realm though. The practitioners are only known as berserker masters. As Su Ming looked at the ruins of the tribe before his eyes in silence, he began walking forward. The tribe was empty. Besides the houses and some stuff scattered around, Su Ming did not even see any bones lying around. The silence was suffocating. He stepped quietly onto the small pavement, filled with protruding stones. When he stepped on them, he felt them pricking his feet. He lowered his head and looked at the pavement, but he still could not figure out their use. He walked forward slowly but stopped suddenly as he caught a glimpse of something from the corner of his eyes. He turned his head towards the direction and saw a corpse hanging on the wall. It was at the border where the tribe had been cut away. The corpse was hidden by some of the houses, which was why Su Ming did not see it initially. However, as he stood there, he could see it clearly then. The moment he saw the skeleton, Su Ming narrowed his eyes. This was the only corpse he saw at the place. He walked towards the corpse quickly. When he looked at it closely, Su Ming shivered. The corpse was very strange. Its top half was that of a person, but it was shriveled up. The lower half of the corpse was even stranger. It looked as if it had melted away and mutated. It was different from the skeletal frame of a normal person. The frame of a pair of wings also seemed to materialize on its back. Looking at the corpse, it even looked similar to the wings of the moon. It was as though the person experienced a change in his form before his death. He imagined the pain of a person changing into wings of the moon, but there was no shred of pain in the corpse's face. Instead, there was only mockery and pride on his face. It was unknown who he was mocking. The index finger on his right hand had pierced into the stone wall by his side. Su Ming lifted his head to look at the stone wall by the corpse's side, and he saw a clear string of words on the wall. They were the words of the berserker tribe. The moment Su Ming looked at them, the sound of wings flapping traveled through the entrance of the tunnel. There were bone-chilling roars mixed in between. Su Ming could even vaguely hear cries of despair among the sounds of flapping and roaring. The wings of the moon have returned. Su Ming's expression immediately changed. Chapter 30. Cries of Sadness. The sound of the wings flapping seemed about ready to cause a storm in the otherwise silent cave, housing the ruins of the tribe. Su Ming's eyes were bright with trepidation, but he did not move. Sounds of flapping wings and piercing shrieks echoed in his ears, but Su Ming knew just how long the tunnels were. Even if the sounds arrived first, there was supposedly some time left before the wings of the moon actually returned. There might not have been a lot of time left, but it was still enough for him to make his escape. Su Ming did not hesitate. He cast his gaze on the words carved into the wall that the strange corpse was leaning against. "Wherefore doth thou wail, O blue sky?" These were the very first words carved into the wall. The handwriting was filled with strength and masculinity, revealing a shred of insolence and truculence. Su Ming narrowed his eyes the moment he saw those words. Su Ming did not truly understand their meaning and could only grasp the basic gist of it. Despite that, he could still feel the sadness and aloofness in the words. "Wherefore doth thou cry, O blue sky?" Su Ming mumbled. Then he looked at the other lines on the wall. The desire to obtain berserk spreads to all corners of the earth. Let fire burn in mine blood, let mine thoughts burn the skies, let fire burn heaven into ashes. If 't be true the moon of fire appears from the clouds on the endless earth, I wilt sink into deep bethought as the fire in mine blood burns. The 9 is the utmost of all, and the 1 is the law. Light up the berserker fires and worship the 9. Did let us all becometh the authorities of fire. Thou who control the heavens, only thou art capable of persecuting me. The words underneath were obviously carved by the same person, but, It was no longer a lament. They were words that were difficult to understand. Light up the berserker fires and worship the nine, did let us all becometh the authorities of fire. Su Ming frowned. These particular lines were hard to fathom. Su Ming read them again, but even so, he still only got the basic gist of it. As he was thinking, the piercing roars and sound of flapping wings became louder in his ears as they echoed through the tunnel not far away. Su Ming did not linger any longer but ran towards the tunnel quickly. He was already in the tunnel, in the blink of an eye. As he stood there, the piercing roars became even clearer. Su Ming turned back and looked at the desolate tribe once more, then ran into the tunnel swiftly. As he ran, he paid attention to the volume of the roars. When he was dozens of feet into the tunnel, Su Ming stopped and crawled into the crack on the wall next to him. The crack was not big, but Su Ming was tiny to begin with, so he had no problems getting in there. Once he crawled in, he immediately squatted down and stilled his breathing. Using the wall as a hiding spot, Su Ming peeked out of the crack and waited silently as his heart pounded against his chest. Su Ming counted the time by his breaths. After 10 breaths, he felt goosebumps covering his entire body. He saw thick red mist rolling into the tunnel like an explosion. Within the mist were red shadows flying past as it let out thunderous roars. The red shadows were wings of the moon. Looking at the wings of the moon at such a close distance made Su Ming's heart beat even faster, but he did not move an inch. He even narrowed his eyes to a slit to avoid any light reflecting off his eyes. A huge number of wings of the moon kept swarming into the tunnel. One of them even crashed into the edges of the crack, and it was just about half a feet away from where Su Ming squatted down. Su Ming held onto the horn so tightly with his right hand that his knuckles turned white. At that moment, he could not even feel his own heartbeat. It was as if he had calmed down completely despite the extremely stressful situation he was in. He stared at the wings of the moon that crashed into the wall. As he looked at its horrifying face and flapping wings, it flew out of the crack. Su Ming did not let his guard down. If anything, it made him even more wary. At that moment, he heard cries filled with despair. Su Ming peeked out of the crack and saw the silhouette of a few people captured by the wings of the moon in the mist, being brought back to the tribe. There were 9 of them. Su Ming could not see all 9 of them clearly, but, as he swept his gaze across them, he saw a person in white, her beautiful face filled with despair and desolation. It's her. Su Ming narrowed his eyes. The person in white was the girl from Dark Dragon tribe he and Lei Chen met at the square, Bai Ling. Su Ming fell silent. Time trickled by slowly. Before long, the sounds in the tunnel gradually dispersed. Even the mist had largely dissipated. It was as though all the wings of the moon had returned to their nests as the blood-red moon left the sky, as though they were all about to return to slumber. A hot wave of heat immediately spread throughout the tunnel, replacing the cold. Even the crack in the wall was beginning to heat up swiftly. Su Ming heard crackling sounds, and right before his eyes he saw new cracks forming on the walls of the mountain cave. So this is how the cracks are formed. Su Ming stood up quickly and approached the cracks. As he stood in the tunnel, he could feel the mist becoming thinner. Waves of heat crashed into him from where the tribe was, causing him to be covered in sweat. The stones on the ground also grew hotter. Su Ming could even feel the ground burning the soles of his feet as he stood there. He clearly knew that very soon, he was not going to be able to withstand the heat in the place. He contemplated on leaving or staying. There was a hint of hesitation on Su Ming's face. Wretched moans traveled through the tunnel. Anyone who heard them would have trembled in their shoes. I already lied to her at the square with Lei Chen. My consciousness won't allow me to leave just like that. Su Ming was still an honest child deep down. He took a deep breath of hot air and ran towards the end of the tunnel. If I can save her, I will. If I can't, then at least I won't regret it. Su Ming's eyes were resolute as he held onto his horn. The closer he got to the end of the tunnel, the more he felt the heat in the place increasing at maddening speed. Fortunately, the distance was close. Before long, Su Ming arrived at the end of the tunnel. Without bothering about the heat on the walls of the cave, he pressed his body against it and peeped into the cave. His eyes immediately shone with a dim light. Su Ming saw 7 people who were still alive, struggling on the sharp stalagmites situated on top the ruins of the tribe in the gigantic basin. Their stomachs were pierced through by 7 sharp stalagmites, and their blood flowed down the stakes. They were still not dead and were letting out cries of agony as they felt the life seeping out of their bodies. All 7 people were men. Su Ming looked at them closely and let out a sigh of relief. He knew none of the 7, so it was clear that they were not people from Dark Mountain tribe. The other sharp stalagmites around them were melting. As they melted, a huge amount of red magma covered the land like a river. As he saw that, Su Ming inhaled deeply. He finally understood the purpose of the sharp stalagmites. This place is really strange. Perhaps the wings of the moon's awakening and departure are related to the sharp stalagmites. Su Ming thought. The sharp stalagmites were probably formed from the magma for some unknown reason occasionally, but not for long. After the wings of the moon returned, they would melt and return to magma. With the amount of stalagmites I saw just now, when they melt completely, the basin will be completely filled. The tribe will be hidden once more underneath the magma. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at a small red trunk which looked like a big tree located at the center of the tribe. The tree also showed signs of melting under the extreme heat in the basin. It was moving around oddly. If Su Ming had looked closely, he would have seen that there were red lines surrounding the tree. Sometimes, a part of it would fall off. It was clear that it was a wings of the moon. However, the wings of the moon that returned to the tree no longer had ferocious looks on their faces. As a replacement, were looks of pain, desolation, and sadness. They did not continue screaming, but they looked as if they were crying silently. Some wings of the moon were even gesticulating weirdly. They kept lifting their claws and biting them to draw blood in the midst of their sorrow. They wiped their claws on their eyes, but there was no blood in the bitten claws. Those wings of the moon crawled into the tree. What are they doing? Su Ming stared at the tree. As he was thinking, he felt the heat climbing up even more. He could not stay there any longer. I can't find her, too bad. Su Ming shook his head. He tried his best. Just as he was about to leave, he stopped. His gaze fell upon the red tree branch situated at the center of the basin. 2 faces appeared on the tree. One of them, he did not know, but the other was Bai Ling. Bai Ling's eyes were empty and void of life, as if she had already given up. At that moment, she looked like a mournful beauty. Su Ming looked at her face, then at the magma gathering slowly downwards. Most of the stalagmites had already melted into magma and had risen about half the height of the houses in the tribe. The only things visible within the basin were the roofs of the houses. Even the roofs were turning into a hot shade of red. The wings of the moon appear when the blood-red moon is in the sky. But judging by the situation here, they should also be connected with the heat in this place. They're really afraid of heat. That's why they will only go out and hunt when this place becomes cold. When they come back, they will all crawl into the tree. None of them will be outside. All of this is proof of my theory. Su Ming did not act recklessly, but he stood there as his eyes flashed brilliantly. I should be able to save her, but I still need to wait a bit longer. Su Ming stared at the tree and occasionally looked at the height of the magma down in the basin. After a while, the heat in the place increased once more. It caused Su Ming to sweat continuously. His skin also showed signs of crying and cracking. The qi in his entire body boiled as he manifested all 11 blood veins. Su Ming jumped down. In the blink of an eye, Su Ming landed on one of the roofs in the basin. The moment he landed, he heard a sizzling sound. White smoke immediately came out underneath his feet. Su Ming did not stop. He jumped again and landed on another rood. After a few leaps, he was near the strange red tree. Just as he was about to reach the tree, Su Ming saw the unknown girl beside Bai Ling shriveling as she let out an agonizing scream. Instantly, she became a pile of bones. It was like she became one with the tree. Her life and all her flesh were absorbed by some mysterious force. Chapters 28 through 30 conclude with a definitive, and likely tragic, ending to the first major phase of Su Ming's life. He has paid the ultimate price for his power and knowledge. A new, darker world now awaits him, where every step is a gamble against destiny itself. Thank you for listening to this heartbreaking segment of Pursuit of the Truth from Panda Audiobooks. What will be the key to Su Ming's survival on his new, desperate journey? Share your predictions below. Join us next time for episode 11, covering chapters 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35, as the true saga begins. Like, subscribe, and continue the epic tale.